In this video, I'm going to be talking about total internal reflection. When light refracts from one medium with a high refractive index into a medium with a low refractive index, the angle of refraction is larger than the angle of incidence. So for example, if a ray of light was in glass, which has a refractive index of 1.5, and it was moving to air that has a refractive index of 1, the angle that the light came in at, let's put a normal on this first. So the angle the light comes in at, keeping in mind we're going from the glass to the air in this situation, this angle of incidence is smaller than the angle of refraction. Or if you want to say it the other way around, this new angle has to be bigger. An interesting consequence to this is that if we imagine rays in this situation, let's say glass to air, coming in at increasingly large angles, eventually the angle of refraction is going to try to hit 90 degrees, or even if we go beyond that, it'll try and exceed 90 degrees. The angle of incidence that creates an angle of refraction of 90 degrees is called the critical angle. So if you imagine exceeding that critical angle or coming in at an even steeper angle, the light can't refract at all in this medium because it's trying to go at an angle that's greater than 90 degrees. What happens in that situation is interesting. When that happens, the light never goes into the second medium at all. Instead, it is totally internally reflected. So if I draw that again, my first angle leads to a large angle. So this is, let's just make sure this is clear. This is something with a high refractive index and something with a low. So this might be n equals 1.5, and this is n equals 1. There's our normal. So the angle of incidence increases, and then let's just say this blue angle is my critical angle, where the angle gets so large here that when it tries to come out in this medium, it's at 90 degrees. If I come in with any angle that's greater than that, instead of it trying to refract into the second material, it will instead reflect back within the glass. This is called total internal reflection. There's no angle of refraction possible, or there's no angle on which that light can be transmitted, and so what it means instead is that 100% of the light is reflected. Probably the most important use of this is in fiber optics. If we imagine a laser beam that's bouncing through the center of a glass tube in a fiber optic system, the angle of refraction here tends to be very large as this laser light bounces around. What that means then is that the laser light can never get out and as a result, the glass tube can reflect the laser light back and forth within itself and allow a laser at one end to meet a detector at another end without any of the laser light getting out or bouncing out of the material. This means that we can pass laser light over long distances to transmit information, and as long as we always keep over an angle of the angle of total internal reflection, all of the light will reflect back into the glass tube constantly and make its way all the way from the source to the detector. So one more time. Because when we go from low index to high, or from high index to low index of refraction, our angle of refraction gets bigger. If we keep going at that, eventually we're going to hit light that tries to refract at an angle of 90 degrees. Since 90 degrees is parallel to the barrier, that means that none of the light is actually going into the material. We call that angle the critical angle. Any angle greater than that will cause all of the light to be reflected back into the material. Any angle less than that, and some of the light will transmit into the new medium. If so, as we approach the critical angle, some gets transmitted, and then after the critical angle, all gets reflected. Basically, there's no angle within that new material that will allow the light to be transmitted from one material to the other. This is useful if we wish to guide light from one location to another, because what we can do is use something like a glass tube that will use total internal reflection to keep the light from escaping, and as a result it will bounce back and forth. We also see this in diamonds, causing them to sparkle brilliantly. And we can also see this, say, in fiber optic cameras that are used in medicine, where we take the light from a specific area and feed it back into a camera so that we can see what's inside something without putting the entire camera inside of somebody. There's lots more applications for this too, but there's just a couple more examples. So that's total internal reflection.